In the 30 years following the Civil War, the United States became the most powerful industrial economy on Earth. This period saw more wealth concentrated in fewer hands than at any other point in American history. In 1882, a reporter asked William Henry Vanderbilt if he ran his railroads for the public benefit. Vanderbilt was the son of a tycoon and the richest man in the country. He answered with 4 words that defined the era: "The public be damned." That statement was a direct expression of the ruling class worldview. These men believed wealth was its own justification, and that the millions of Americans working in their factories were simply inklets to be managed at the lowest possible cost. Mark Twain called this the Gilded Age, a period covered in a thin layer of gold on the outside, hiding a much darker reality beneath the surface. It was an era that set the stage for every major political and social struggle of the following century. This era was driven by a cascade of breakthroughs: the Transcontinental Railroad, Bessemer Steel, the telephone, and electric light all arrived within the space of a single generation. Because these technologies were entirely new, no rules existed for how to capture the value they created. The men who positioned themselves at the center of these transformations stepped into an economic power vacuum. This vacuum initiated a high-stakes experiment. America was finding out what happens to a democracy when private wealth grows without any legal or regulatory checks. Cornelius Vanderbilt built the first great American transportation monopoly. To eliminate competitors, he would cut his own prices until they went bankrupt, then raise those prices again once he had total control of the market. While Vanderbilt built railroads, Jay Gould manipulated them. He was a financier who bought and sold companies, not to operate them, but to profit from the difference in price. He routinely cornered markets and spread false information to drive stock prices up or down. This quotation board records the frantic numbers from Black Friday in 1869. Gould and his partner attempted to corner the gold market, driving the price up until the market crashed. Hundreds of investors were ruined, while Gould walked away with millions. These titans faced almost no legal consequences. They could crash markets and destroy competitors while treating the national economy as a private playground. As this wealth grew, it was weaponized to buy political influence. The same money that consolidated industries ensured the government would not interfere. At the time, U.S. senators were chosen by state legislatures rather than by the people. These state legislatures were often beholden to corporate interests. The Senate became known as the Billionaires Club, populated by men chosen by railroad and oil interests. Democracy itself was neutralized. The monopolies funded political campaigns and wrote the very legislation that was supposed to regulate their own industries. While corporate profits soared, the millions of workers in these industries faced brutal conditions. 12 to 16-hour days were common. There was no minimum wage, no safety regulations, and as this image shows, child labor was a widespread reality. Andrew Carnegie embodied the era's contradictions. He was a philanthropist who gave away over $300 million to build libraries, yet his steel mills were run with relentless efficiency and brutal labor relations. This tension erupted in the 1892 Homestead strike. When steelworkers struck over wage cuts, Carnegie's partner hired 300 private Pinkerton guards. A battle broke out on the riverbank that left 10 men dead. Between the 1877 railroad strikes and the battle at Homestead, the use of private guards and state militias to break unions radicalized the labor movement. These conflicts shifted the struggle from bargaining over wages toward a fight for the legal right to organize. J.P. Morgan sat at the top of this system. He was a banker who controlled the capital industry needed to grow. Eventually, interests connected to Morgan controlled corporations worth $22 billion, at a time when the entire federal budget was less than $1 billion. This concentration of power reached its limit in 1907. A financial panic threatened to collapse the American banking system. Banks failed, credit froze, and the government lacked any institution capable of stopping the crash. Morgan, then 70 years old, locked the leading bankers of New York in his private library. He refused to let them leave, until they agreed to pool their resources to stop the panic, essentially running a private rescue operation for the United States. Morgan saved the economy, but his actions exposed a fundamental failure. A democratic system that relies on a single private citizen to prevent a national collapse is a system that has reached its breaking point. The response to these excesses was the Progressive Era. It was a period of reform that acted as an institutional immune response to the concentration of power seen in the decades prior. Congress created the Federal Reserve to prevent private bankers from controlling future crises. They established the income tax, the direct election of senators, and foundational labor laws to rebalance the power that had shifted toward concentrated wealth. These reforms established the market rules that still govern the modern economy. They set a legal floor for worker protections and created a system of rules that prevented the most extreme concentrations of corporate power. The Gilded Age demonstrated how far economic concentration can proceed before a democratic system is forced to react. It leaves every generation with the same question: how much concentration of economic power is compatible with genuine political democracy?